Special thank you to Seed and Stone Cidery and Lucky Buzz Meadery for sponsoring the show today. They help to make this show possible and supply us with the occasional beverage when we're out there. They've got 10 taps full of meads and ciders made right there in-house. They've also got all sorts of awesome events going on, including an open mic almost every single Thursday where you can come out and show your musical talent. So all you songwriters out there, stop out and grab a cider or a mead and tell them that the Songwriters Couch and the Patrick JAouen Band sent you. Again, Seed and Stone Cidery right here in Rochester, New York. Go out and visit them and let them know we sent you. Thanks, guys.
All right, welcome to episode number 16 of the Songwriters Couch there behind me, presented by my band, the Patrick JAouen Band. And on today's show, I've got a special guest, one of my favorite musicians and good friend and colleague in the Recording Academy, Monika Ryan. Did I pronounce your name correctly? I know.
No.
No, I didn't? Really?
No. It's Monika.
Oh, Monika, that's right. Okay, so Monika Ryan. I usually check before I announce anyone too that that I have on the show. But on the show today, Monika Ryan, and why don't we kind of tell everyone what you do, and
Sure.
Any selfless or selfish self promotion where they can find you on the internets and all that.
Well, thank you so much for that great introduction. That was very sweet, and the feeling is mutual. And yeah, I'm a jazz artist, and I do reach out into other genres, but I'm primarily a jazz artist, and I can be found at Monika Ryan Music on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. And I'm also, my website is Monika, Monika, Ryan, RYAN.com.
There you go. And so one of the things that I kind of highlight on this is songwriting, and you are in the midst of songwriting, right? At the moment, and recording an album or 6 or 7, right?
This is what happens with me. Yes, I write a song every day. And I do that partially because it's mostly because the practice of doing it makes you better, of anything, right? Like whatever you do, if you do it, the more you do it, the better you get. And I recently was reminded of a book I read years and years ago called Art and Fear. And in that book, there was a study done of pottery students, of potters. Half the group in the class was divided into a group that their whole job that semester was to make the perfect pot. One pot, the perfect pot. The other half of the class, it didn't have to be a perfect pot. They had to make the most pots. And that was their job. So it was basically quality versus quantity. And they had to be viable pots. They had criteria. They had to hold liquid. They had to have a handle or whatever the criteria was. I don't know what the criteria was. They had the same criteria. And what ended up happening was the highest quality pots came out of the quantity group. So when you think about that, you get better at anything by doing it. Just even if you're not trying to be perfect, just by doing it all the time, you get better at it. And so I write a song every day, not to necessarily write my masterpiece, although we always hope. But it's really just to be better, to get better, to improve. And because I curate an album, when you put an album together, it's a bunch of different songs. You're curating something, and usually there's a point and a purpose to what you're curating. You have some sort of a message behind it or some sort of reason to put those songs together. Like, it's not like I wrote 10 songs that have nothing to do with each other. and I'm slapping them together on an album. I'm really thinking about like, well, what am I trying to say here to the world, or to to what am I trying to give people?
Yeah, to the
And so yeah, I batch them, and so then I end up with multiple.
Oh, I lost your audio there, Monika.
Oh.
Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back. You're back. But this is a good transition period. Let me also, just before I forget, because we talked about this right beforehand, I do got to thank our sponsors for for making the show possible. And Monika, can you just give me a little audio? Just talk. Just make sure I got you still.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yep. Yep. You're still there. You seem a little quieter now all of a sudden.
Oh no, I don't know what happened.
But you sound good.
Some mystery. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, keep it. Whatever's there. You sound good.
Whatever happened is good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's switched microphones or something like that. So what you just said, though, is something that I actually talk about a lot on this podcast with songwriters. And there's a quote by, I had mentioned this in a previous episode, by I think Eddie Vedder. And he said he was talking to one of his painter friends, and he was just starting getting into painting or whatever. And he was terrible when he first started doing it. And his painter friend, who's like a professional painter, is like, before you judge on whether or not you're a good painter, paint 1,000 of them, and then see whether or not you're good. And I think that the combination too eventually comes of, you've probably written so many songs at this point that you have you've kind of gone through the 1,000 pots that are a little leaky, right? And gotten to a place now where you can actually consciously decide on making that song or that pot, if we're trying to be metaphorical. You have some conscious decision making over like how that product's actually going to come out, but that's only because you've done it 1,000 times, let's say, or 1,000,000 times, or whatever the amount of practice that you've done is. Is it a conscious decision to like write a song a day, no matter what that is, if it's a viable song or not? That's
I mean, I guess I as somebody who's improved, I usually can spin out a viable song every day. Like, it's then there's the piece that, what is the arrangement? Like, it doesn't have to be, they're not all 6-minute songs, nor really do I want them to be 6-minute songs. If I were a classical artist, I might have a different structure in mind. But as somebody who did you hear that? There's like a motorcycle going by.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're real people here. This isn't AI. That's how you hear the background noises going on.
Yeah, as somebody who is making like songs to play on the radio or on in playlists, they're usually 2.5 to 4 minutes. 5 feels long.
Is that typical in jazz too? Like, is jazz held to that same kind of like radio friendly, 3 minutes?
It used to not be. Now it is. I think every genre is.
Interesting.
And in the age of, I guess I want to say Twitter, but X, in the age of like the shorter soundbite.
I don't mind Elon Musk, but really, what was the point of changing? Keep it Twitter. Keep the name Twitter. It's
I don't know.
Tweeting,
I don't think we can waste any creative brain power guessing, because we won't get there. We don't know what you have in mind.
Thinking, because now, is it called Xing when you put up a tweet?
I don't know.
It's called tweeting. I don't do the Twitters that much. I kind of just I stay off of that platform in particular. I've got enough.
But the idea is like these shortened mediums like TikTok and X. And so I think people's attention spans are diminished, like, and mine too. I mean, I'm a product of today too. I can sit and listen to things for hours and hours and hours, but if a song goes on long, I used to write 6-minute songs, no problem. But now if a song goes on, I can almost feel when we're approaching 3.5 minutes, and I naturally close the song because it can feel too long, which is weird because I'm an open-minded person.
What's strange though too is because you have like podcasts like this, right, which are kind of like longer format discussions and that sort of thing that has kind of taken off in the last few years. And yeah, you have the reels, and we've talked about all that kind of thing too. Those super short, 30-second pieces of media that get put out, and we'll maybe get into that a little bit too. And what if you're even doing any of that stuff?
Yeah.
I'm not doing enough of it, according to a lot of people that are telling me I should do more of it. But I'm resisting it at every turn to do more of that. But like, you have the ability to have these long form podcasts. You'd almost think, like, in the era of like the Spotify's and the digital media, as opposed to traditional radio, like longer songs or longer pieces of music in some way, shape, or form might be more prevalent. You know what I'm saying? So like a Bohemian Rhapsody, right?
Yeah.
Like more kind of almost storytelling, like whole almost like operas, so to speak, in pop music. I would think that would come about too, side by side with this like short thing that's happening, but
I think there's actually a reason. Like, I think there was originally a business reason why why music got shortened. Um, I believe, and I could be wrong, this could be perception only, but it's been my perception that in order to get, more plays on things like Spotify, they want shorter songs. So it's easier for people to get songs in playlists that are shorter. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. Maybe they want to have a fast turnover because of people's attention span. I'm not sure what's behind that, but I have heard and observed that there's a shorter length that's become like standard. Now, in art, you don't have to follow standard at all. It really depends what your mission is with a piece.
Yeah.
Like, if your mission is to say something and that something takes 7 minutes or 15 minutes, nobody should stop you. But if your mission is to like write a song that can be slid into the marketplace in a way where it, has the least amount of friction to get that piece of art or message out there, to observe the sort of norms of
what the market,
what people are doing, will give you less friction.
Yeah, I almost there's something to be said about, right, you want the most amount of ears maybe listening to your music, especially, and I think you and I probably think of music in a different way than some other people out there, or musicians out there, that are producing specifically for things like TikTok and ad space on the social media platforms. Like, we're coming at it kind of from an artist point of view versus it just being a business venture where you really don't care about the music. It could be split up and changed and whatever, and you don't care as long as you're getting paid from it. And I think that it's almost like an old not an old way of thinking about it, but like the way that music was 20 years ago and in the past versus 20 years to now, the way it's been commoditized in things like streaming and the like, where it really is like, it was always a product, but I feel like now it's like you said, the attention spans are shorter. And so in a playlist, I've seen songs that are super popular, but in a month there's some other song. So you don't have like these classic, like a Bohemian Rhapsody or the songs that are still getting played today from back in the 70s, 60s, 80s, whatever, that are these classic songs that just get played over and over and over again. As a matter of fact, Rick Beato had he's from Rochester, actually, here, I think. He talked about in one of his podcasts the billion plus streamed music or whatever. It's all like AC/DC, Queen, like it's all these the classic rock songs from back in the day that like took the time to really write a piece of music versus something that's just going to be played over and over again every 15 seconds on almost like a loop.
Well, those songs also have a couple of big advantages on new songs. I mean, one of which is they had support a long time ago, and they've become part of our cultural vernacular. So people are used to them and comfortable with them and like them. New things are not as comfortable, even, not to say that those weren't, you know, totally revolutionary in their time. They were, but they had the support of the machine and a different machine that wasn't so short attention span, as we were saying. And now they're part of the comfortable landscape. New stuff is oftentimes not comfortable to people. I mean, when you think of like things that are innovated or innovative, um, they are challenging what has been. And so there is some discomfort in, do I like this? It's like tasting a new thing you've never tasted. Or do I like this? Is this amount of sour or this amount of bitter or this amount of salty good or bad? I'm not sure. So we have this kind of thing where something new takes time to settle in. And in a time where there's not a whole lot of, it's a fast-paced marketplace, like a lot of publications will not write about a piece if it was put out 6 weeks ago. That's old. So you have, I mean, I was just talking to a newspaper who, a writer, a music reviewer for an international newspaper. And they've reviewed my stuff before. And they said, oh, we'd love to review your project, but it's been out for, like, at the time it was like for 8 weeks, and we don't touch anything that's been out.
That's amazing.
6 weeks. So we can't have the support to make something comfortable that a Queen had or an AC/DC had, because we live in a different world. It's like you have to make a huge splash and then just hope that it,
That you
sort
can
of hooks into some people. Like some people, it's a very bizarre marketplace.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
almost you have to sell your. I mean, you've always had to be a personality or an entertainer to some, in some regard, as a musician. You have to be a personality, kind of along with you doing music. But I feel like back in the day too, and when you say support, what I tend to think about is the support of the record companies getting new musicians or new bands in there that maybe aren't fully at their peak of what they're capable of doing, but there's potential
Sure.
there, and the record company is willing to put the money into them doing music as like a full-time thing. They're not being expected to immediately be money makers. Like there was a certain level of like, okay, we're going to invest a little bit. They'll put out their first album, their second album will be better. By the third album, they'll grow as artists, and those are the albums. Like if you look at like Aerosmith, although that one Aerosmith song is huge now. I have a story about that. Oh no, oh no, 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 no. People have no idea that that's Aerosmith, including my producer, Allie. At one point, I had to tell her because I was playing it. I was playing a thing of that. She's like, "Why are you playing that TikTok song?" I'm like, that's Aerosmith. Kidding me? But like they had some time, like Aerosmith's first album, although I really like it because it's so raw and whatever. They didn't fully become Aerosmith. I'd say even until like Toys in the Attic or
Yeah.
Pump, or the later albums where it's like, oh, now they're a
They
band,
found their groove.
right? And I feel
Yeah.
like artists nowadays don't have the luxury of time to grow into what could be amazing stuff, because it's got to sell right now. And like you said, in 6 weeks, that song's old news already. So if you're not putting out
Right.
constant content, it gets lost. And I don't know if that's me just being an old musician, complaining about the way things are now, but I think that like we lose something in that. Do you feel that way, or do you feel like we just have to adapt, and maybe it's a new world that's there'll be new innovation that comes out of it, because it's you're forced into this shorter time frame to produce stuff.
Well, I mean, I've never had a major label contract, so I'm not exactly sure how it currently works today. Like, they might have a system for developing artists that I'm unaware of. That's possible. I've seen artists that were smaller grow over the years, that have major labels recently.
Hmm.
But and seen them develop. I've seen them develop into bigger, more, more polished versions of themselves. So that system may exist. It's still a little bit of an enigma to me, because you see people who, burst out of the gates with their first record, and it's, all of a sudden the biggest thing ever. That's different to me. But I don't know. It's like an iceberg. I don't know what happens. I don't know what's happening under the water and for how long.
Yeah, yeah.
So I feel like I can't speak to the fact that it might be there, just in a different form,
Mm.
in like a hidden form almost.
Yeah, I see.
Workshopping something.
Yeah, I see it, but I see like so like for instance Billie Eilish, or I don't know, Tyler the Creator, or you got like artists that kind of put out their own independent stuff. One of their songs, Cardi B, she was on a reality show, and then because she had a little attention, she put out like, almost rap is like I feel like she was kind of putting it out like whatever, I'll just do this for fun, and she ended up then becoming a huge star based on the popularity that already existed. And I feel like record companies now are swooping in kind of after the fact of artists building their.
Well, possibly. I mean, I think I heard somewhere that Billie Eilish's parents are in the music business. I would have to look that up.
Yeah, that
But
had
I think a
some.
lot of people, it is actually, I think the narrative of this person just, popped up like this out of the blue is a disservice to developing artists, that at any age, because being good at anything, as we started out the podcast talking about it, you have to develop. Nobody, no flower just shows up full bloom. It has to get its way out from the seed, through all of that hard soil, grow, sprout some leaves, be a tight bud, and there's all this process involved. And when by the time we're oohing and awing at this gorgeous rose, it's been through a journey, right? And that's true with all artists. Nobody springs forth done.
Yeah.
So this sort of narrative that, oh yeah, just a couple of kids with no resources figuring it out, and boom, they're an overnight sensation. It's not it's not fair to any developing artist to put that image out. It's not real.
Yeah, and I think that with Billie Eilish too, and her brother, they did have support of a record company kind of early on in that that first record that blew up. And I think her parents actually were just like they were in commercials or something. Like that wasn't really a big music
Yeah.
thing. And she's super talented. I
Well,
love like.
maybe she is very talented. So is he. Yeah. And the thing is, I don't begrudge anybody their success, and
Yeah,
they
I think
write some beautiful music.
what kind of I guess what kind of bothers not I don't want to say bothers me a little bit, like I think is a like you said, a disservice, I think, to the artists themselves sometimes, is if they have one of those things, they put out a YouTube video of some song, kind of was written quickly, it blows up really big, and they haven't done the 1,000 to get there yet, and it kind of just blows up, right? And then they're under enormous pressure to just put out another product like that tomorrow,
Right.
so they can get trapped in this like and you see it with really great musicians sometimes in the pop world, where it's like they're forced to just turn out the same song almost in a different way every single time because they have to sell, and it's not given the opportunity to really like spread its wings and become something more than what that original thing. And as if they don't do that on the kind of sophomore piece of art that they release, then they get forget, oh, they were one hit wonder, even though they were just the biggest star 3 weeks ago. They're like, oh, that's we're done with this person now, let's move on to the next hot thing. And I don't know, I feel like maybe it's becoming such a commodity in the TikTok world and all that it's losing its art in some sense. aside from like what I see in the underground. Like I see a lot of underground musicians doing a lot of cool stuff, but they're doing it without any expectation of
Well,
selling.
there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. I mean, the thing is that, listen, the human experience is people are gonna try and label us as human beings from, like, just talking about all things human in society. People are gonna try and label us, and we have to say, whatever, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Only person who defines me is me.
Yep.
Sorry, love you. Um, and I think that's true as an artist as well. I mean, it's the same thing you would apply to somebody saying, I don't like your outfit. You'd say, good for you. Go dress yourself.
No one ever
Yeah,
says that about me. I wear the same thing every single day. Same,
the,
same outfit.
yeah, I don't know. My point is like,
No, I
I
get made fun of constantly, Monika.
do you?
Constantly, yes.
Well, that is actually
People
their problem, not yours.
point and laugh. Look at him. Look at him. No, they don't do that. I'm just kidding. So speaking of you being uniquely you, how did you what got you into the genre of jazz of all things as a musical genre that you kind of primarily sit in, and like what got you into music in the first place? I always like to see like where where the
Where the music
musicality,
comes from.
yeah, like in your family you have a lot of musicians, or
No,
is
no, my family
it
are all visual artists.
oh,
So I'm the oddball. I'm the one that is the musician. Um, yeah, actually, I would say my sister, I don't even know what her taste in music would be. And my mother is still defining her taste in music. And my father, liked classical music, but, I wouldn't say he was much of a music fan either.
huh.
But here I am. And when my mother will tell stories that, um, well, I was born, but seriously, going that far back, she would give my sister, who's 4 years older than me, a crayon and a piece of paper, and my sister would draw with it. She'd give it to me, and I'd be hitting the paper with the crayon or crumpling it up next to my ear. And or another thing is, my big sister really didn't want me hanging around her door, and I really wanted to hang out with my sister. So my mom would have to get me to do something else. And like, like the cat that wants to be in your room that sits right outside, I would sit outside my sister's, a crawling baby, sit outside her door and hope that she was going to go exit so I could be with her, right? So my mom knew which my favorite records were. And when that was happening, she would put on a favorite record of mine, a crawling baby. And immediately I would perk up, crawl over to the speaker and sit next to it till the record was over.
Huh.
So I was always sort of governed by sound and sensitive to it.
So
But
what ended up getting you into playing, like performing and songwriting, especially? Like was it were you trying to write the soundtrack to their visual arts, or what was the
no, I mean, I was always making up little songs as kids do. I mean, not really thinking anything of it, but just sort of making up songs. And I begged my parents to play the violin. I begged them. And I did. My father found, I grew up in Manhattan, in sort of around the corner from CBGB's, and my parents were split. So my dad had a place in the Lower East Side in Alphabet City, and my mom was on Great Jones between the Bowery and Lafayette. So right around the corner from CBGB. And I remember I wanted a violin so bad, and they were like, no, no, no. So then eventually my dad on the way home was passing somebody with a blanket with all this stuff spread out that they were selling along Tompkins Square Park. And there was a violin with a big crack in it. And he bought it for me. And that's when I started playing violin. So I was about 7.
did you just pick it up and start playing it, or was it something you ended up taking lessons, or
I
what?
took lessons. I took Suzuki lessons,
Okay.
and I did that for a little while, and then I got to an age where I didn't really want to practice, but it didn't mean I wasn't musical. I just didn't want that structure of that kind of practicing. And I always watched old movies as a young child, and the old movies like 1940s 30s, 40s, 50s have the jazz as their soundtrack. That was the music of the time. So I zeroed in on that, on those movies, and got that sound in my psyche. And I think I'm a sort of a romantic person by nature, and that music is very romantic, very heart driven. And so the combination of the sound palette and also where I grew up, there was like a jazz club everywhere. I mean, I would pass the village gate on the way to elementary school. The Blue Note was on my block, like the Fat Tuesdays was across the street or right around the corner from my high school. Like all these jazz clubs, with all these jazz greats playing in them were in my neighborhood
Yeah, that's
growing up.
definitely something I miss, kind of being upstate, and surprisingly, because the Rochester has the Xerox, the International Jazz Fest up here. So you would think there would be a lot of like jazz, jazz bars and what have you up here. There's one or two, but not like in New York. I grew up in Queens too, so I hung around those same
Yeah.
areas a lot when I was a teenager and stuff, and including CBGBs. And what's funny is, I ended up going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Ohio, like
Oh, I've been there.
and they have I don't know if you know, I don't know when they got it in there, but the front awning of
Oh,
CBGB's
they do.
on the first floor. And I walk in, I'm like, oh, that's
That's
the
funny.
awning. It's so weird to like see it in a museum. I just spent so
Yeah.
many evenings. I
And
call
it
it,
was so counterculture, right?
yeah,
And
right.
here in the museum, that's how it goes.
Did you ever go to the gallery next door, CBGB's gallery, when that was open? Like
Yeah,
the kind of side to it, which is a weird time frame where it
it was.
punk rock to like, okay, now you have this acoustic version of it on the.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the beginning of CBGB's end.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. Yeah, I was really surprised that New York City didn't like landmark it, and say like this is a cultural, like, something or other, that they let it just be bought and you know
That's, I mean, that's happened with so many things. New York is like, it's amazing. And it has these sort of periodically has these tragic closings, like how did that happen?
yeah,
But it's
the
part of it,
cats.
the circle of life, New York style,
But it's so sad to see, like, when you grow up and there's like these huge cultural things, or like Cat's Deli. I just went to try and get a sandwich that was down in New York. I was like, oh, let's
Yeah,
actually, as a matter of fact, I think I tried to go there. We were on tour. The last tour, I tried to bring my band there because they'd never had Cat's Deli sandwiches, right? So I'm like, oh, let's go. There was a huge line like around the block, but all around it, there used to be clubs and stuff around there. But now it's all
yeah,
just these high rise, like these huge high rise, and then Cats is sitting there like this, like all the buildings
yeah.
staring down, like their next Cat's Deli, to be bought and turned into some high rise condo.
And the truth is, you don't know if that will happen. It's not like that'll never happen because that happens all the time,
It's
right?
true. Yeah,
You think, oh, it survived. No, it survived for now.
they'll become some virtual restaurant. You can only get on Grubhub or something.
You'll be able to go into some museum and see a diorama of it.
Of Cat's Deli, a big pastrami sandwich.
Little model of a sandwich that somebody
So
made.
when you write songs, because you obviously, I see instruments behind you. You have a piano, you have your bass back there, and I had mentioned the Jaguar back there too. But how do you approach songwriting? Is it something that you approach from like a band, or do you typically come at it writing sort of a beginning of a piece or something, or how do you actually approach like coming up with your, you know
Okay, coming up with like the musical structure or the lyrical structure or both
I
or
guess
either.
both, yeah. Because usually so I'll give you an example. When I write a song, typically I'm sitting somewhere. I just have my guitar in my hand. I'm either having a drink of alcohol, or I'm just sipping coffee in the morning, and I'm just playing around on my guitar. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thing. Or I start playing something, and I come up with a line or a lyric, and then I
Yeah.
can flesh it out from there. It like kind of comes to me, and then I have to flesh it out or remember. I've been talking about this. It's almost like I'm remembering the song versus it like
I
me.
like that.
And a lot of songwriters I've talked to too are in that same boat. It's like you it's like you're remembering what already exists somehow.
I love it.
And every other musician also kind of remembers it. So when you're in a band, they're like, oh, because this is the language that they use. Oh yeah, I can hear this harmony there. Or, oh yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear this part of the song happening. Almost like I said, it already exists in some capacity.
Yeah, like on another alternate, like we're talking now, we're in the quantum plane.
That's right. But like usually it starts by me, sitting on a guitar. I'll play a couple of chords and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting, progression. And then I'll start to write lyrics. And sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes I start writing and spend a lot of time on it. I end up giving up on it after a while because I feel like it's garbage. And then my band yells at me, I really like that song. And
Don't give up.
I'm forced to play it over and over again for years and years, even though I don't like it.
Yeah,
But like, how do you approach the songwriting? Because you're saying you write every day. So do you sit
I do.
purposely to write, or is it something you're just kind of you're hanging out, you're by your piano, and you're like, oh,
I almost never am just hanging out and it comes like that. However, when I do, it's almost like I turn on a faucet or a switch. Like I go, okay, now I'm going to do it because I have a very fluid schedule, but it's a very full schedule. Like I'm working all the time. I work 7 days a week, and I have 2 teenagers, and but mostly they're of the age where they do a lot by themselves. So it's even though I'm very, very busy, there and I'm a very present mother, and that's a part of my schedule. Most of the time I'm actually working on music. And because I'm so busy sort of arranging this record and that record, when I go to when I go to write a song, I stop doing what I'm doing, or I will tell my children, like, okay, like if you need anything, tell me now because I'm going to song. I turn it on.
hmm.
Um, and then I'm actually not the world's greatest instrumentalist because, well, who could say they were, but I'm really not. And if they could, would they? Anyway, I'm really not, because every time I went to practice, uh, whatever instrument I was holding, I would end up writing a song.
Hmm.
So I would start an exercise and all of a sudden I forgot about the exercise and I'm writing a song.
Right.
So I developed one thing and not the other, actually, just following what I was interested in. But that's a whole other side quest. I usually start with a bass line, usually. And for a specific reason is that the bass to me is the heart of the song. It is 1 foot in the rhythm and 1 foot in the harmony. It's really the heartbeat of the song for me. Because if you have a clear bass identity, you have the song's identity. So I sometimes will write a bass line that's almost a melody, because it's telling me what the song is. So, and then it really does define, like once you that if you start with that minimal piece, you will know what the rest of the song is supposed to sound like. Like it's because of the nature of that instrument.
So I tend to write very I'm in the same boat. Musically from a technical standpoint, I think I'm a better songwriter than I am a technical musician, and my bandmates can probably attest to that.
Oh,
Sometimes I ask him, what fucking key is this? And I wrote the whole song, I'm like, I don't know what key this is. I don't know what chords I'm playing sometimes because my fingers just, are doing something.
you know what it sounds like and you like that.
Right, it sounds good, and there's a place for
Yeah.
it, whatever. But I like to write lyrically, kind of almost stories to the song, and have it have a general feel, and then I flesh out the musicality behind it. But I feel like jazz is written almost in a different way, where it's written from the musical part of it, and then the lyrics are kind of something that gets added almost after the fact, or not, not after the fact, not an afterthought, but like there's a melody to it that fits in with the jazz of it all.
Yeah.
And the storytelling is kind of like almost like because there's a lot of scat singing in jazz, and there's things like that where almost lyrics are almost like a secondary thing. It's not necessarily storytelling, although it is. Like, do you
I think it depends. It depends. I mean, I'm often doing the lyrics sort of simultaneously.
Mm,
I say I start with the bass line, I do, but I'm also thinking kind of like almost parallel, like train tracks of what the song's about because there's the sound. That is the part that's a little bit more mysterious. Like I like starting with the bass line because I like the receiving the musical identity that way, like figuring that part out. But I pretty quickly know what the song because I know what it's about because of the bass line. I pretty much know where the lyric is gonna be.
yeah. So like what the I think the previous podcast to this, I had a gentleman by the name of looking up my book, Marty. I mispronounced his last name too. Aloco. I'm probably mispronouncing. I'm so bad about names. Monika. But like, so he was talking about this thing he used to do because my daughter Maya wrote recently. He was her guitar teacher for a little bit, right?
Oh, cool.
Me teaching her, it's less structured and it doesn't feel like.
No, it's hard. It's hard.
So I wanted to hire a teacher. So he was part of the Rock Academy thing. LVO Fernandez from Daughtry has a school up here, so the piano.
Oh, cool.
Daughtry. So she was going there, and he was the teacher. But she wrote this song recently that was all melody. Like she had this melody in her head. She recorded it. I got her like a little Scarlett thing, a microphone for her room, and all that. She recorded it to to a click, and I'm like, record it to a click, so I can go back afterwards and I can do stuff with that, right?
Cool.
But she
Good
wrote
life
it
skill.
not from how I normally write, where I'll have some sort of a rhythm guitar thing, right? A chord progression of some sort that can be either translated to piano or kept on guitar or whatever. And then I write a melody over that, or I remember the melody over it. But she wrote it from a melodic point of view. And then I had to go back in and try and fill out the music behind it. And I found
Yeah.
like almost impossible for me to do. But the reason I
Huh.
bring up Marty is because when I had him on the podcast, I was talking to him about this. I'm like, Maya had just written this song, this melody, and I'm trying to come up with the music behind it and talking about it being challenging. He's like, it's funny because what I used to do is like people would put up on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever these things where they would sing melodies and then ask people, hey, put something to this, or let's.
Yeah, that's actually my favorite TikTok thing. I don't like TikTok, but I love it when you see people build out
Yeah.
how something would be. I just
So
very fun.
he had done this so many times where he would write like background music to just some kid, coming up with a melody on TikTok.
Right.
It was that he had gotten doing 1,000 of them, right? He had gotten very
Yeah.
proficient at like writing the background music to a melody that's there. And so, so we sat down afterwards and he figured out like a little thing and came up with the progression, for it. And we ended up writing it. But I feel like the reason I bring that up is because I have skill sets, I guess, that I'm good at, which is the songwriting part. Like you reminded me of me too. Like from a musical standpoint, it's in my head in some way, shape, or form, but I don't have the technical prowess of like a really great technical like keyboardist or a jazz.
But you don't need that. That's the thing. Okay, so one of the things I
I'm good at
learned.
songwriting, but
Yeah,
musical technicality is definitely not my thing, and I need to.
but that could be to your benefit because I'll tell you, sometimes being a novice at something, you see things in a different way. Not that you're a novice. I'm not calling you a novice songwriter, but if you're talking about like technical stuff and saying that's not my thing, you're going to be looking at it in a different way than the technical person.
Right.
And so it's as novice isn't the right word, but it does apply to, I guess, if somebody's looking at something for the first time or just from a different side, you'll have a different perspective, and that will make your work refreshing. I mean, so I heard that Joni Mitchell suffered from polio as a child and it left her hands weak. So she couldn't play guitar in standard tuning. She had to play in, open tunings. And so with her weaker hands, she on open tunings was doing what she could do, and created all this beautiful music that was different because her limitations were guiding her.
Hmm.
When you think about your limitations, I mean, we all need, like, if we have if we have no structure at all and no limitations at all, we can be overwhelmed by the options, like too many choices, right? Another thing that this is reminding me of is I read this book by Twyla Tharp, who is a famous choreographer. She choreographed Hair on Broadway, and she's choreographed many things.
So funny.
Anyway,
I think my oh no, Hairspray. My daughter's doing Hairspray this year.
different, totally different. But I think I read somewhere in the book, she was talking about some project she did where one of the dancers was in a wheelchair, and actually having that limitation basically helped her define what the dance would be, because there are certain things you can't do with a wheelchair. What can you do? Oh, but you can do things people can't do, because you can involve the wheelchair in the dance. You can be doing wheelies and things, and you can be doing different things that, so this limitation is not a limitation. It's more like it narrows the options so that you can sort of get the precision for that right piece. So I think limitations are helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually talked about that too. So like for instance, when you're a young musician, especially in New York City, right? And you've got your apartment there, and for anyone living in New York City that may be watching this, that grew up there, you have your first apartment. It's super expensive. You're especially if you're a musician, you're trying to make it as a musician, so you're playing music. You're probably working some crappy, waitering job, or your
Yeah,
coffee
have to be
shop,
nowadays, especially.
whatever. But like buying new strings for me was always like a cost. It's like, oh, I gotta buy new strings. So sometimes I'd have a guitar laying around, but it would only have like 4 strings left on it because I'd broken a few. I play kind of hard sometimes. So I break a lot of strings. But sometimes you break like the D string or the high E on it, and so it leaves it you can't play guitar like you normally would. And
Yeah, it's a different texture.
oh yeah, so you end up coming up with stuff that maybe if you had those other strings there, you wouldn't be able to, or you wouldn't think to play in that way. And
Yeah,
so almost like by having the limitations of the um the constraints of poverty of a of a musician
right.
that can't afford strings actually opens you up to be more creative or come up with
To
more.
think differently, right? Yeah.
Do you find like you put yourself in such I know you're saying, you purposely focus on, okay, I'm going to write a song. Have you ever purposely like put some sort of like constraint on yourself? I mean, obviously when making a record, right, you have a theme to the record, so that you're putting a
Yeah.
constraint on yourself in that way. Is there anything else that maybe you've done almost purposefully to put
I
yourself in
am
the mindset
I
of
feel like I have, but I can't think of it on the spot, because this isn't something I thought about before this moment. I mean, but I feel like I have. I know that with the last album, I knew the title of the album before it was done. Same thing actually with my current album, my
what's
next
the name
new
of it?
album.
Can you speak about those yet? Any of those? Do you want to
Now
just
I can speak about the next ones to a point.
yeah
To a
mention
point.
maybe just so that if people are on the lookout for for
Well,
what?
the last one was called Playfully. So the constriction was I didn't want anything that was a downer, and I really didn't want any ballads, but I ended up with one. I wanted them all to be sort of have a sort of a lightness to it, because the idea was about that was a that whole album was a reflection. I had been talking to everybody last February, almost a year ago, about, how are you doing? How's life? And we had just all been through COVID, and politics is crazy, and there's war, and all of these sort of devastating pieces of news and life experience in our psyches. Everybody was exhausted. Everybody felt like, oh my God, it's so hard I feel like, I'm weighted down by the world around me. And I just have to go and go and go. And, the price of milk and everything. Right. So I wrote that whole album about, with the thought in mind, when times are hard all around, the way we not just get through them, not just survive, because we were all surviving, but to thrive is through inner strength and being in touch with those spaces of joy within. When there's no joy without, of course, no, like people do have moments of joy, but when the light is dim outside, you got to boost your inner light, right? So the whole album is about ways to do that. It's about like I see that light in you. I have one that's called I See It in You, and it's about all the sort of little magic things I'm seeing in you. And then I have and the you being they're the you being each individual. I mean, I do look for the light in people, and I do see the things I was calling out in other people, and sometimes people need to be reminded of that. So that was a reminder. And then little pieces of magic. And then there was a song called Slipping Out about setting boundaries and taking space when you need space. Like you can be you there's another song called Grow Where I'm Planted, which means sometimes you're in the heart of the action, sometimes you're in solitude, sometimes you're someplace you want to be, sometimes you're not. And wherever you are, you can grow. And we do grow because the state of being alive is the state of growth. So it was sort of a reflection of all these sort of positive reflections that you can lean on to feel powerful and good and okay with taking time off and okay with the joy of missing out, while you're getting your strength together. So, so when I theme something, there are natural limitations. Like that was themed. I wasn't going to do anything that was wailing or heavy, even though I write music like that sometimes. It was not going to be on that album. and the next one, the one that I'm currently working on, I had less limitations on, because I recorded most of it in Spain in October. I was going to Spain, and my good friend Sergio is a great guitar player who's a Brazilian guitar player who used to live in New York, who now lives in Spain. And we have long been friends and fans and wanted to work together. So that one I hadn't totally titled, but I wrote the music, and I noticed that all of the songs, four of the songs, are about getting away. I really wanted to get away. I really wanted to go on vacation. And I did, and I recorded it on vacation, and I'm still working on that. So then, anyway, I recorded 9 songs in October, and then brought a wonderful piano player back in Spain, and the bass player and the drummer on another day, and recorded another 3 songs. And then I felt it still needed something, so I hired some horn players in New York, and I think I have all but one part done now, and it'll be in mixing soon. But
Well, I think that too, in and of itself. So you got me thinking about a few things, because I think the majority of the songwriters and musicians I've had so far on the show, actually 15 shows, I don't think any of my previous guests have had kids, right? And so you and I, right, are
yeah,
in kind
it's
of
a different ball game.
in a similar boat. But you got me thinking kind of a little bit about 2 things. One, as an independent musician, a lot of times you're funding funding a lot of this yourself. So you're paying musicians, you're paying for mixing, mastering, you're paying for this kind of out of the either the proceeds of a previous project you did or out of elsewhere, and you're pulling kind of resources from wherever you can because you don't have the unlimited resources of a record company putting in a bunch of money to make something happen and make the vision really. And so you're naturally constrained by some financial limitations.
Right.
But
And also kids do need things too. And so it's not like you're just earning money and it's not like you're just earning money and
yeah,
packing it away. And
yep,
yeah,
yep.
you got
So like, so part of that is, I find, and I'd like to put this out there because I feel like if I'm going to put out a songwriting podcast or some kind of message about songwriting is that, there's almost a compulsion on my part to do this, and I'm sure it's on your side too, right? To make music and to write songs and to do this sort of thing, and you can easily get put or find yourself in a situation where, okay, I've got to take care of kids, and I've got to provide this or that for them, and they've got all their things going on, and you can easily lose a part of yourself and become kind of like, I feel like I end up not being the best dad I can be if I'm not also doing the music thing too.
Oh
Like,
yeah, you gotta take care of your spirit. Like that's it. Like
it can be difficult because it's tiring being a parent too, to find like the time, which is interesting that you say, you set a certain amount of time, which is great. And your kids know, and you have obviously behind you, you have kind of a little studio and we can't see the rest of it. But I think we're pretty
it's like a
similar.
little attached shed. It's not very big. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've got a similar thing in my basement that I built, a little studio and where all this stuff is there. So it's obviously such an integral part of like you as as a human being, but then you're also a mom there. Like, do you find your kids either one, because you're part of the recording academy, so you've been to the Grammys and all that sort of thing, and my daughter as well has come to the Grammys. And as a matter of fact, speaking of Billie Eilish, big fan. She's a giant fan of Billie Eilish, or was at least the year that she won like 8.
yeah.
I'll tell this story because I haven't told this story actually publicly ever. So I'll tell you this story, Monika. And I don't know if I've told you this, but we go to the Grammys out in LA, and on the way in, I brought her with me, my daughter, right?
Yeah.
Looking at my phone, trying to pull up the information for the tickets. We're walking into what was then called the Staples Center to go get the tickets. That Friday, Sunday was the Grammys. As we're walking in, Beck is coming in, and he's got a whole
Yeah.
security team around him, right? And I'm looking down at my phone, and I accidentally like shoulder check one of the security guys that's like surrounding him. I'm like, oh, sorry. And then I'm back down to my phone, but I got my daughter, and I think she was 8 at the time. So I'm like holding her in the state,
Yeah.
all this stuff, so I'm being a parent
Yeah,
too, and
yeah.
figure out tickets.
It's a busy space. Yeah.
I get up to the line for the tickets there to grab our tickets, and the security guy comes up to me like angry, like ready to, I know that feeling because I grew up in New York City. I know
Yeah.
the eyes of someone that's about to I'm gonna fight.
Yeah.
But he comes up like steaming mad. Starts to, did you do that on purpose? But I'm like, no, dude, like I'm just, I was looking at my phone. Sorry. Like I said, sorry when I bumped into you, like it wasn't trying to do anything. Anyway. So he leaves, and then I'm waiting in line because I'm with my daughter. I'm like, just, don't worry about that. Like whatever happened, like he got mad. I shook his hand. That's what I did. I put out my hand. I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. Here's my hand. I'm not going to fight you in the middle of,
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Awfully. But then I keep seeing him like he's talking to someone off in the distance as I'm waiting. I'm moving up in line. He starts coming back. I'm like, oh God, what's going to happen now, right? He walks over.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to end up getting him in trouble for putting this on a podcast, but he comes over. He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you were there with your daughter. I'm a father too, and I got kids. When I'm in the mind space of being security, I'm very like, hyper focused, and I get a little like tense or whatever. I apologize." He's like, "Here's my card. When the Grammys come on Sunday, just shoot me a text." I'm like, "Yeah, I appreciate that, you apologizing or whatever and coming over." But my daughter, was there, and he's like, if we'll get you backstage, we'll get you down towards like the A list, like where
The best.
and
Yeah.
the Grammys, right? So like that, those seats aren't
Yeah.
even purchasable.
No.
So I'm like, but he did it in front of my daughter. So now I have his card, and my daughter the 2 days before. Did you text him yet? Did you text him yet? Because she wants to go up and talk. I'm like that day. Normally I wouldn't ask any kind of favors. Like,
Right.
I wasn't cool with that. I'll go sit where I bought my tickets. She was pushing me, so I text him that morning, and he's like, all right, so I'll bring you down. Just text me when you're in we get in there. He brings us down. I'm sitting next to the producer of the Grammys now, and I'm next to like Trevor Noah, like literally front row right there.
Amazing.
That's the year that Billie Eilish ended up winning.
Oh my God.
Right? She's 8-year-old little Maya sitting next to me, next to the producer of the Grammys. But I'd never seen her scream like a teenage girl, but she was screaming like a teenage girl. Billie Eilish won another Grammy, But it's funny because the reason I say that is because as a parent, being a musician, I think that kids, they don't realize I don't think she fully realized where she was, like that not many people get to sit front row at the Grammys and watch, this all happen. So it's kind of, in a way, I was really happy that all that happened, even though the way that it happened was kind of like weird. But I was happy that that happened because it lowered the boundary between, like she almost doesn't care about the Grammys or the like fame of things because she's become disconnected from it being not within reach, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
I think it's good for kids to sort of know that everybody's a human being and we are all connected, and it's possible for them to reach any level they want to reach.
yeah,
And
like
that sort of demystified that. It's not an us and them, it's just an all of us.
do your kids go into your studio and like are they musicians at all? Are they really into music, or are they like, oh,
They're really into music.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that.
They're really, 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 and they have excellent taste. I think they do anyway. Yeah, it's pretty fun. My son is a really, really fine guitar player.
Really?
Yes, he's very, very good, but he doesn't play to perform. He doesn't like to perform and doesn't want to pursue any performance in his guitar playing. He really just plays for like the super pure love of playing, but he plays it every day. And he gets into a record and he'll be copying it, and just work it till he can copy it. And the latest version of what he was copying is like such a good record. I think it's One Night in San Francisco. I live One Night in San Francisco with John McLaughlin, Paco de Lucia, and Al Di Meola. It's so amazing. It's amazing. I mean, the songs were written, but they also were largely conversationally improvised between them. So they're like this super fast picking back and forth. It's such a fun, it's like both, virtuosity and humorous, like a good humored conversation, quick quips back and forth. So he, got into that album and just started copying all three of them and having the whole conversation himself.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at, right? Like that the musicality, I think of my daughter, like even just that melodic thing that she wrote is so significantly beyond where even I am today after doing music for 30 something years, because she kind of grew up just in music. And I'm just wondering, like, you having kids, like, is it there's almost like a disinterest in what I'm doing. Like, she doesn't care at all. Some people are like, oh, that's so cool, you're doing this or that. She
Oh,
doesn't care at all about what I'm
I
doing.
drag them in here to listen to my stuff
Yeah.
because I know they'll get, like, they have good taste. So like, my son will be like loading, he's going to be 17 in 10 days. He'll be like loading the dishwasher, listening to Miles Davis, or like, like he's got good taste.
Yeah.
And my daughter, she plays bassoon with the Philadelphia Youth Orchestra. So she is, she has, really good ears. Like, And she'll listen to stuff and she'll be like, well, the undertones are making it a hair flat, but it's not really flat. So I'll have them come in here and tell me what they think of stuff I write. And when they think it's cool, I know they've got like a whole library of information that they're, comparing it to.
Yeah. How do you come up? How do you like bring about the energy of creativity after kind of momming? Like, is there a like I'm obviously they're a little older now, right? But when they were younger, I
Yeah.
imagine it was because well, I wouldn't imagine. I know that when they
Yeah.
when kids are younger, it's very exhausting. And I had my ways of finding time to like be creative and ensuring that I was kind of in a state to be creative. Like,
Yeah.
is there something that you did in particular, like that kept you going with music? Because it can be something where when you become a parent, where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna get a regular job kind of thing and not pursue the music
Yeah.
stuff anymore and maybe put that on the back burner and but like you obviously continue to do it
Well,
success.
I was fortunate in the sense that I was, in a committed marriage, and that my husband made enough money for the family. If, we weren't going crazy spending money, we had enough.
Sure.
And so I didn't need to go get another job. That was key. And because not everybody has that luxury. That's a luxurious position to be in.
Yeah.
And I did have that luxury. But I also, shortly after having my son, who is my older child, he, I had a couple gigs lined up, like really nice gigs. And I went to them, one of them when he was 3 months old, and was like, I want to be home with the baby. Like, I love doing what I'm doing, but I want to be home with the baby. And so I really did I didn't stop making music. I just transitioned the way I made it. Um, when they were really little, like I did a lot of writing and playing music, but it was really like a seed underground. I was just like my son plays now just for himself. I almost kept it in, but I would take the kids to early jam sessions, jazz jam sessions, like not the late ones in the CD bars, but the early ones that happen at dinner time in
those,
nice restaurants,
those are definitely those late night ones are definitely not kid friendly. I've been to a few of those.
Oh,
Lots of pot
yeah.
smoke in the air and
Yeah, but there were a couple that were, 20 minutes from the house, and they were at dinner time, and great jazz musicians were there, and they were in nice restaurants, and I could bring the kids and I could say, okay, you can have anything on the menu. And they paper. I remember this one had paper tablecloths. You can draw, and we're going to sit together, except when I'm singing one song. But they could see me and I could see them, and I would get up and sing. And one time I remember my daughter she had to be 2 or 3, and she decided that she wanted to come up, and I'm singing a song, some sort of jazz ballad, and I picked her up, put her on my hip, and kept singing. you know so, and people love it, and my kids remember it fondly. They remember
is your daughter
all of those
like
things.
super comfortable on stage too because of that, you think, like nowadays,
My
like
kids,
yeah, do you
are
think
they comfortable on stage?
yeah, like if they just
No, no, no.
they're teenagers though now, right? Or are they
My daughter is now, because she has to for her bassoon, like she plays in the honors wind ensemble in the high school, and she's in this orchestra, the Philadelphia Youth Orchestra, and they're playing big rooms. Like they're going to be playing the Kimmel Center, which is like huge. It's like Lincoln Center
yeah.
in Philadelphia. So you have to get comfortable, and their rehearsals are practically a performance, because there's like, I don't know how many are in the orchestra, but it's basically a room full of kids playing their instruments, and the conductor and the orchestra staff. So it's like a performance, even when you're practicing with each other. So she's more comfortable now, but she'd probably be nervous if she was stepping out just her in front.
Yeah, being out there kind of front, because you're the lead vocalist, right? Typically when you go out and perform. Like, was that something
Yeah.
that you kind of wanted to be out in front, or is it something where, because I'm the lead vocalist too in my band, and sometimes I feel like I want to sit in the audience and watch my band.
Yeah.
Okay, like,
Yeah.
but it needs someone to kind of lead the charge a little bit, you know. But
Yeah, it's an important role. I
so
mean, everybody's got their role, right? So they're all important.
yeah, I'm just interested in like another parent's perspective on, because similarly, I mean, when my son was born, like I had this thought of, okay, I can stop playing music, right? Because it would be um not necessarily easier. I guess it would be, yeah, it would be easier because I
Yeah,
still
it's on some level easier, on other levels harder, like externally easier, internally harder.
I had a day job and all that stuff doing, that was providing the, the healthcare and all that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
the main source of income and all that. But I was like, I can stop playing music, but I don't want them to look at me and say, like, I kind of had a conscious decision. I want my kids to know that you don't have to give up on what you love just because you have a family and you have
Yeah, that's important,
like
actually.
in a relationship, like there should be people like, you should be supporting each other, and everyone should kind of be um helping each other do what makes them happy, regardless of what, I guess what that is. And I kind of felt like I needed to be an example of, like I said, just because you get married and you have kids, you don't have to all of a sudden give up all your, your creative endeavors and all that. You can do that too, and it takes a little extra effort in that instance. But the conscious decision to do that, I think, was I'm seeing it now almost like impactful on them, because
Yeah.
I see them, like I said, especially my daughter, who's in the creative space. My son learned a whole bunch of instruments. He's super talented, but he had no interest in performing at all. Like,
Ah, same.
like he
Interesting.
played the saxophone, drums, like he's musically, he can do all of it, but no interest in it. Um,
Yeah.
but I find it interesting, like parents, especially that, that continue to do it. Even like big musicians that are touring, giant rock bands, like continue to
Yeah.
do it after you have kids. It's a challenging thing to continue. You almost want to be like, yeah, I just
Well,
want to go home and
it also, depends on like what's happening at home and what you need to do and what your resources are. Like, my mother was she was a painter, but she became a single mother with two girls in New York. Like she stopped painting, you know. And I was aware that she stopped painting. Like we were aware that she stopped painting. And I think, she tried to get back into it a little bit. I think part of it was that she didn't she had issues with the art world anyway. Like she didn't really like the art world. But I was aware that she stopped painting when she had kids, you know? Like it got backburnered. I didn't want to do that. I also though wanted to be home with my kids, and I was the primary care provider, and I also was really aware of the fact that I know it sounds funny to say something like this, like it's only 20 years. But it's only 20 years. I mean, we're living to be what, 80 and up. 80 is no longer ancient.
yeah.
Like my grandparents most of them lived into their, well, no, one of them lived to 97. We take really good care of ourselves as a generation. Medicine is advanced. We are going to live a long time unless we have a freak accident. Most of us, right?
I hope we
Most of us.
live 97. Yeah, they were living off of like cigarettes and red meat and, you know
Exactly. Margarine, you know?
asbestos and, like
Yeah. Spam,
lead,
all that stuff.
yeah, lead paint and everything. Uh,
Yeah. So it is really only 20 years. And when you think about
and when you say,
our,
so just so I can clarify what you mean by that, so like 20 years, you mean like from the time your kids are born until, this is what I'm assuming you're saying, until they maybe get their own apartment, they move out, that sort of thing.
until they're grown.
Yeah.
until they're grown. And they're only, I actually think everybody, everybody's relationship to parenting and really like every family is so unique. And it really has to be whatever you do, it has to be the right fit for your group's temperament. There's not like this is how you do it
Yeah.
and this is how you don't do it. For me, I really wanted to be there, really. Like I didn't want to tour just a little bit. Like I'll go for 2 weeks in the summer and knowing that they're having a blast with their dad and a grandparent.
Mm.
Okay, that's all right. That's like sending them off to summer camp, except I'm going off to work.
Yeah.
you know, but most of the time I like to be here. So I've structured my music life around being home.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can imagine it's very, very hard if you have to tour to make a living and you have the kids and they've got a life at school.
Yeah.
And like there's these layers of complication that are you have to every parent has to find a relationship to it. My relationship is I had a very hopping career. I had kids. I brought it all the way down to a slow simmer while I was raising children. They still need a lot of presence. They're going to be applying to college. They're navigating their next step. But I have more time now and more freedom. I can go out to a gig. They can be home alone. I'm not paying a babysitter. So it's always on your mind and it's always a factor, but it changes as they get bigger.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think too now the technological advances of like recording and all that sort of thing, you can do a lot of stuff remotely.
Yeah.
I find helps too because I've got band members that are a couple of like maybe an hour and a half away. So sometimes recording and getting all of us into a room together would be really challenging. And me with kids, like I have my kids now like every other week, and so when I have them, it's challenging for me to. I don't want to just leave them here and go do you know
Yeah.
music thing. So either I'm having everyone come to me or we're doing some remote stuff or what have you. And they're old enough now too, like where sometimes, being kind of left alone and doing their own thing they prefer over
Yeah.
me
I
anyway.
think
But
I think it's also important to like if you are a parent and you're a musician, you don't have to be surrounded by other parents who are musicians. You don't have to be surrounded by people who are not parents. You have to be surrounded by people who understand that you are a parent. Because, I was doing some work with a group of musicians. None of them had kids. And they were completely unsympathetic to the fact that they wanted to have rehearsals at 11 o'clock in Manhattan, which can be an hour and a half drive for me. I had young children. It was not easy for me. And when I would say things like, that's not a good time for me, I was the only one saying that. And they were not sympathetic. I mean, that didn't last basically because it can't last. That's not. Meanwhile, if somebody tells me I'm old, my kids are old enough that I can, be in the studio all day and they can cook their own dinner. It's not every night. They can do it one night while I'm working. Um, but if somebody says to me, I have a young child and I'm the primary care provider, or I need to be home for my kid at a certain time, I'm going to watch that boundary for them, with them, and support them. That you need to be home by this time. That means we need to be done by this time. I'm watching the clock for you, with you, and making sure we're as productive as we need to be during the time. And even if we don't get to where we wanted to get production wise, your boundaries here, you got to leave. I'm not going to be like messing with that because you have your parent life and that's a big deal.
what do your kids make food wise? What's their favorite dish to make?
Oh,
Do they have like a signature dish?
I mean, they make so many different things. My daughter likes to bake. This morning, she'll be 15 next month.
All right, so our
Eh,
kids are similar age wise. So all right.
15 and 17.
So yeah, 15, 13. Well, no, 14 now. 14.
Yeah, 15 and 14. Yeah, so it's yeah. I mean, I think these last couple of years with my younger child have been, and both kids have been like big growth years. Like my son will be driving. He's his birthday I'm in New Jersey. And in New Jersey, you can get your license at 17. His birthday's in 10 days, and he's going to take the test on his birthday.
Itching to get out there, huh?
And he's going to get grandpa's old car.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's a 2006 Prius with 200,000 miles. I mean, it has no blue book value, but it'll be like so valuable.
Oh, it's so funny. Like I think that you know, the support that you get from the people around you, like you said, your husband and the people around, even your kids, support what you're doing. I think that's probably one of the biggest things to continuing to do, and pursue things that you love and being successful, is having people around you that are supportive of you, and that
Oh, for sure.
which you, of course, Monika, or Monika, I'm sorry, I keep calling you Monika.
That's okay. That's
Monika,
okay.
like I really, you had some support for me a while back, and I really appreciate that. I just want to say thank you for that too. But
Oh my
I
God, anytime, my
yeah,
pleasure. I
continue
think
to,
it's an honor when people ask you for support. It means they feel like they feel like they can. And I'm so glad that you did ask, because it's nice for me
yeah,
to
it
hear.
was a moment where I was like, oh, what's kind of what's going on is what I was thinking of at that time, and maybe I'll explain that on a future podcast what happened, but not today. I won't do it today.
Okay.
So, but I think like the support of people around you and having a team kind of around you, whether it be bandmates or a record label or just your family that's around you. I had a comedian on a few episodes back who said that his mom, when he first decided, because I think the art of comedy and the art of music very similar, especially when you're out.
Yeah.
And so I talked a lot about like comedians and how they approach kind of their art. And so I wanted to have a comedian. We'll probably bring another one on. But he said his mom, he had gone to her and said, I want to pursue this as a career. And she's like, well, I'll tell you what, I will help you in any way I can to cover you if you're going to go into that full throttle. And I,
Yeah.
having that kind of support, I see it in his eyes that he feels like he can do it simply because his mom said, I got you if you
If
pursue.
you need me.
Yeah. And it's so, I feel like a lot of individuals don't have that privilege, or don't get the opportunity to do what they love, or to pursue
Yeah.
what they really want to pursue, simply because the support isn't there. So thank you, first of all, for the support that you did give to me, and I want to extend that to you as well. And that's kind of why I want
Oh,
to
thank
also,
you.
that's part of why I do this podcast. I want to have whatever little resources I have to help promote these musicians that are out there. Maybe not, maybe they have no one supporting what they're doing or whatever, but I see them, and I watch them, and I listen to them, and they're amazing
Yeah.
artists. And like, if no one else believes in them, I believe in what they're doing. And I
Yeah.
think that's probably my one contribution. If you're out there and you're a family member of an artist or someone creative, it can be very challenging to put your heart and soul into something that you release out into the world, and there's critics that want to either hate it or love it, or you don't know what's going to happen. And to feel like you're alone in that, I think is not acceptable. So
I think it's all of these things. And I also have to say, like, it's a huge, so, in this right now, it's in the time we find ourselves in. I mean, you can be the, most brilliant artists in the world, and you're still up against a business that is not like really fully paying for the art that, you know, you we have a mess with the streaming right now, where the royalties are not really a livable wage, and people, now that they've been getting all the world's music unlimited at their fingertips, either for free or for $9 a month, very few people, I won't say nobody, some people are, but very, very few people are like, oh, I should pay for this because it costs money to make. So when you're supporting an artist in your household, like I make now I'm made my 2 albums this year. The one was released in August and the other one will be released in the summer next year. And then I'm making another album in May that will be released after that. So I have a sort of a cadence where one is being made while the other one's out. Or coming out, one's coming out and the other one's in the shoot, right? Um, it's not cheap. It's not cheap to make this art. And so it's a sacrifice. Like my family would have a lot more money if I wasn't an artist, because I emotionally have come to terms with the fact that I do this because I believe that it's my way of being a counterbalance to the harshness of the world. Writing music that supports people is a service. But we are all out here doing this work, not getting paid really. And, there's a truth to the fact that it's like a small m, capital ART, small YR, a martyr. I mean, we really are giving away our lives' works because it makes the world more beautiful. And it should be different, but that's where it is right now. And we don't have like the screenwriters and the screenwriters and the actors, they have their unions that protect them and say, hey, look, you're enjoying this TV show, you have to pay the writer. Musicians have no organization doing that. Our unions are not doing that. So there's nobody really protecting us. We're at the whim of what the public wants and what the market has decided to do. The other piece, I think that's very hard to be, not just us as the creators, but also the people who support us, is that the way live music is right now, we have venues that many of which, I would say most of which, do not want to pay for live music. And so you have musicians now, perform, like people think that exposure is enough, which it's not, because you cannot pay your rent with exposure bucks. You cannot buy your groceries with exposure bucks. So it is a very hard time. I mean, I think about this, like I think about this also, all the instruments, like the things we were talking about, strings, all the lessons, very, very, very expensive. I mean, it's very expensive over a sustained period of time. Anybody who's ever purchased a high quality instrument, like one that sounds very good at a professional level, it's not a small investment. And also, if you're being a reasonable creator, you're paying the best you can for others. So you're really losing money in this effort. And the people who support you are losing the money too, because you're not only not making like a contribution to your house, but you're spending your household's vacation money or whatever, new car money on new records.
Yeah.
So I think I think it's all very complex and powerful. And I'm very thankful to have a family that understands that and accepts this and supports me in my happiness. But it's not super easy to do. It's not super easy to get. Not everybody has it. So anyway, it's hard. It's hard out there.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think sometimes you put a project out there too, and you don't know is it going to be, because you kind of have to be, you have to set yourself up as a business too, in the same way.
Right.
You have to think of it as like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this project, and yeah, it's a project of love, and yes, I'm doing this, but there needs to be some, at least ethereal out in the clouds way of it could make its money back, and it could,
Yeah.
but ultimately you're going into it, especially if you're doing it from an artist perspective, where you're doing a project where it's not a guaranteed sell, like we were kind of talking about before. If you're making it specifically to be a TikTok thing, and you're working,
Right.
okay, how much 15-second little clips can I make to just make me money? That's a different way of making music than being an artist and actually putting out a project that may be beautiful and it may be a wonderful piece of art, but you may not make any money. And you know, being that your family was in the visual arts, you know, painters and that sort of thing. Speaking of the art world,
Right.
a lot of them, most of those paintings aren't $1 million paintings until they're dead. You know, they live
Well, right. Van Gogh, right? You know his story, right?
art and being broke and what.
Yeah, his brother subsidized him. Like, so his brother, he's I think he sold one painting in his life to his brother. You know, it's like, and his brother, and you know, his brother subsidized him, and then his brother died. And he died. So his sister-in-law, his like widowed sister-in-law with children, was like, what's up? I have a bunch of paintings and I have kids.
Yeah.
And so she is the one who made Van Gogh famous
Mm.
because she was like, "Oh, I got paintings," you know, like,
It's
but without her, who we might never know who he was. And how insane is that?
yeah.
That's insane.
And I think that's where like you know, the team around you and the people around you are super important, and who you surround yourself, you know, with. I think if you're in the company of people that don't have necessarily, they don't have to have the same vision as you, but can accept that you have a vision maybe that of what you're doing that may not be easily recognizable to the market. um,
Yeah.
Doing what, you know, you have a solid vision of what you want to put out, and having people around you that understand or trust that you have a vision um,
Yeah.
is important, and will help you continue. And I guess I think probably we'll wrap this up, but I do want to have you back on, Monika, because there's certain like business aspects of the music business too that
Yeah.
I know you've been a part of, and I'm, you know, I've been steeped into, that I really want to talk about.
Yeah.
Like for instance, BMI being bought out now by, I don't even
Yeah.
know what the company is. I'm a BMI. All my songs are registered with BMI, so I'm
I'm asking.
contemplating whether or not I should change that now. But all that sort of stuff, and the, you know, the business behind it, I think needs to be explained to new musicians that are coming into the,
For sure.
you know,
Yeah, there's a lot of working parts that like I mean, yeah,
no
there's a
one
lot of
tells,
working parts.
it's like no one tells you about it, you know. And I
Right.
feel like even successful musicians and artists almost keep it so close to the chest because they don't want anyone else to get a little piece of the pie that they've been able to attain, and so they
Yeah.
want to gatekeep a little bit to keep out.
Well, it's a scarcity mindset, which I mean, I get why people have it because look, like how much money is in the music business and who's getting it. I get it, but it's not my way. So I mean, I believe in sharing because I'm a high tide all boats rise kind of thinker. I
Yeah,
like to see
I agree.
everybody rise, you know, but I also understand it. Years ago, a friend of mine we were talking about jazz specifically, and we're probably going back 20 years when he said this to me, but he he was like, jazz is like a feeding frenzy, but there's no food, so everybody's eating each other. And I was like, damn, that's harsh. He was like, no, but look around, think about it.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that being the case. But so let's end kind of on a high note here, because we'll stop it here.
Oh yeah, that's such a
We'll
downer. I'm
we'll
sorry.
have a follow. Yeah, I feel like we went kind of like into the deep end of the of
Well,
the,
I love doing what I do, and I do it because I love it, and I do it to lift people up, and all that other stuff exists, but it's not my focus.
yeah. I mean, there's challenges there, but I think you know, especially you and I, you know, with all the challenges that are out there, and a lot of our kind of peers, if you will, in the indie music world. Um, you know, if you continue kind of putting in the effort and putting in the work, you know, there are opportunities out there, and I think that I don't want to discourage anyone from getting into the music business, but it is definitely a tough one. No one's going to hand you anything anymore.
Yeah,
There's not going to be some A&R rep
I don't
that
think
comes
they ever were gonna hand anybody
up
anything.
to your
That's just the
show
thing.
and just all of a sudden you're famous and your I don't know who's a big one, Taylor Swift or whatever, like her and her
But she
team.
had to work for it too.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Put in an enormous amount of work, and she is in and of herself, and you can see that now, a business,
Yeah.
and I think learning that side of it is super important, and it's difficult for creatives to want to get into the business side of it. You got to understand it. So I guess my ending here would be, what piece of advice, if you had like kind of one thing to say to someone starting out, either songwriting or getting into the music, as as a profession, I guess, what would you say to them, or a piece of advice you would give to them?
Well, I guess there's like a lot of pieces of advice, but I would say one of the things that I try to ask myself before every project is, what is the intention of the project? There's like different benchmarks for how you define success. Success is specific to each thing. Like if you say, I'm going to the store to get milk, when you go to the store and you get milk, you're successful. You could get other things, but your goal was milk. And so if you know your intention for each project, hey, this project is for to be played, like this is supposed to be elevator music, grade A elevator music. It doesn't have to be anything else. It could be the best elevator music ever. That was your goal. And don't let anybody take you had a goal for that. If this is to make people happy because they're sad, it doesn't matter if it has commercial success. If its goal is commercial success, then that is what you're focusing on, and you're writing it for that. And if you keep those lines very clear, and you're very clear about what means success, I think you'll always have it. You just have to, like, it's when people get like start conflating things, like it has to be the best artistic piece and it has to be the most success. Sometimes those things don't come together. Sometimes they do. But if you're very, very clean and clear about defining what success is for this, and at first keep it very simple. The success is going to the store and getting milk. That's all you have to do. Do that. Make that a success. Build from there. That would be my advice.
I think I can wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think that part of the reason why I feel kind of a connection with you, Monika, is a little bit because of your ability to kind of see the light in the, like, when there's when I write a piece of music, right, even though let's say it's a piece of music about something sad that's happened in my life, I'm not looking at it as, this is such a depressing part of my life and I want to share the depression of the thing. I want to show how beautiful it is that we get to, as human beings, experience things like a sad moment and how beautiful that moment is. And I feel like your attitude towards not only your art but in general your life is one of kind of seeing the beautiful moments in all of that stuff. And I think that your
Thank you.
positivity comes from that, and I'm drawn to that. And so I continue to reach out to you because I can see that you're in that same that same mindset as I am. You come across a lot of struggles and things in life, and you can either take it as I'll everything's against me,
Yeah.
or you can take it as, all right, this is another challenge. I'm grateful that I got the opportunity to try and push back against that, or I'm grateful that I even have the opportunity to experience whatever it is I've just gone through, because with the lottery of life and what have you, you may not have even gotten the opportunity to experience any of it. And so
Yeah.
I see your positivity, and
Oh, thank you.
so if I can say anything to new songwriters, new musicians, all that would be, just keep going. And if you've got a good perspective, and some people will say to you, you should just, why don't you just stop doing that and become I don't know, a lawyer or something, or do something that's going to make you more money. I think there needs to be more people and artists in the world that show the amazing magnificence of human existence in all its forms,
Oh,
whether it be through art or music or performance or whatever that thing is. I think
we're going to need more of it in
yeah,
the era of AI, which I actually like. They're not going negative because I actually think AI is pretty cool.
yeah,
I don't think it replaces people. It's a tool, right? So if it went in, it's like a hammer. It's a cool hammer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but we're going to need more humanity as that starts showing up more. Like the art is needed. It's actually needed.
Yeah, I think especially now, we need more, uh, more human beings, just expressing that without thinking about how weird it is to do that sort of thing. Because we're all um,
Yeah.
doing it, and I feel like I gravitate also towards those type of people, letting their kind of inner weirdo shine. Afraid to be a weirdo because the greatest people in the world that have existed, like Picasso, were
Right.
broke during their time doing it and ended up, giving humanity some of the greatest gifts that can be given. So, Monika, let's do this. Let's give another shameless plug of where people can find your stuff.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
and
Yeah.
so give it to them.
Yes, thank you. I have everything up on MonikaRyan.com. That's MonikaRyan.com. And I'm on Facebook as Monika Ryan Music, and I'm on Instagram as Monika Ryan Music. And come and join the conversation. Join my mailing list. I write blogs about creative process, and they'll come right to your inbox. Not every week, but fairly regularly.
All right, so everybody go follow Monika on all her platforms. Go download her music because actually downloading it does help, especially on like iTunes. I tell everyone like, oh, actually
Oh,
download
yeah.
it. You get paid a little bit more when that happens. I'm getting phone calls over here in the background too. But before I go, I need to do the shameless plug too. Go down
Yes.
there and subscribe, like, comment, do all the like. Tell your friends about us, share it. We have got merch now. I finally put out a link to the merch that took me 15 episodes to create, but it's finally out there. I don't have a lot, and there's more coming for Christmas. Go purchase that, although this episode will probably come out after the new year, so happy new year to everyone
Happy New Year.
watching that, and we'll see you on the next episode. Monika, thank you so much for being on the show, and
Thank you.
maybe I'll see you in LA, or is that you're not going this year, right?
No, my daughter has a big concert in Philadelphia. And, and
Much
so
better than some of the Grammy stuff that'll be happening anyway.
I mean, I would honestly, they both sound great to me, but now I'd like, now I don't have to choose because, I wasn't nominated. If I was nominated, I would have a
That's
tough choice. I
yeah,
would go to LA, but I would miss my daughter's big concert at the
yeah.
Kimmel Center. And that would be sad. So now I get to be happy about going to Kimmel Center and
I
not
dig it.
missing it.
Is it after Jimmy Kimmel? Is that what that's named after? What is the
No. No, I don't know what it's named after, but yeah, probably a family. It's probably a family name, but I don't know. It's beautiful though. It's a beautiful. Well,
you said in Philly?
it's in Philadelphia. It's in downtown Philadelphia. It's like the premier music hall.
That's awesome that she gets to perform
There,
there.
it's a great. I love. This is a whole other conversation. I love the Philadelphia Youth Orchestra. I love it.
We
They
should
do a
do
great job.
but you know what I should do on this podcast? I should have continue to be a patron, and then you can see the rest of this conversation. We should do that whole thing that every other podcast.
I know. We could probably talk for like 10 hours.
Yeah, you got like a paywall in front of it. I agree. We could talk for a long time, but we'll cut it here. We'll have you back on maybe in 6 months. AI will have taken over the world, and we'll be all digitized and whatever on the podcast.
No, it won't happen because, as we said, the world needs people being real people.
That's
And we're
right.
going to do that forever and ever.
That's right. So thank you everyone for watching. Happy New Year, because I believe, I hope so, it'll be out after the New Year, I think. So Happy New Year, and again, thank you everyone for watching, and to our sponsors, Lucky Buzz and Seed and Stone Cidery, and we'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye.